begin recording and then hand it over to President Handke.
Excellent, thank you. We are recording. So good evening. Seeing a presence of a quorum, I am calling the regular meeting of GOL to order at 6:32 p.m. on February 3rd, 2026. I am presiding over this meeting per our council rules of procedure until a chair is elected. Please be advised that this meeting is being held remotely. And in the event of technology issues with the remote connection, we will figure it out as long as a quorum of the council can still be connected remotely. Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extended through June 30th, 2027, the ability of public bodies to meet without a quorum in a physically present room, and so to meet fully remotely, which is what we are doing tonight. This meeting is being recorded and is accessible in real time via Zoom or phone. So at this time, I'm going to call upon each counselor to indicate that they can hear and be heard. This will also show the presence of every counselor. So Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks you. Ana Devlin Gauthier.
Present.
Lynn Griesemer.
Present.
Counselor Lord.
Present.
And Counselor Ryan.
I'm here.
The first order of business up is the election of a chair. We're going to run this similar to all the other elections. I'm going to take nominations, and then the people nominated, I'll ask if they accept it. And then if they, once nominations are over, any speeches, we will ask if anyone has any comments after the nominees have a chance to speak, and then we will vote. So I see two hands for nominations. So Lynn.
I would like to nominate Ana Devlin Gauthier because she has done such an excellent and increasingly good job over this last year.
Ana, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
And Counselor Lord, you had your hand raised but decreased it. So was that because you were also going to nominate Ana?
Correct.
Okay. Thought I'd give you the opportunity, but that's what was guessed. Are there any other nominations? Ana, would you like to say anything?
I appreciate Counselor Lord and Lynn's faith in me in making these nominations. I've worked really hard as GOL chair, and I know that there's a lot more I can do better in this coming term, but I look forward to continuing that work.
Thank you. Would any other counselors like to make any statements before a vote? Lynn.
Yes, I do. I just want to say that I believe that Ana has really made a significant contribution to the council, particularly in the work that was done this last year around the town manager evaluation. And it's just it's a wonderful way in which she has brought her professional expertise to the council and really made the whole process more meaningful. And I know we're only midway through it, and we'll be evaluating it some more, but thank you, Ana, for that work and all the rest of the work. Thanks.
Seeing no other counselors and seeing that there is only one nominee for a chair, is there someone that wishes to make a formal motion to elect Ana Devlin Gauthier chair of GOL? Lynn?
I move to elect Ana Devlin Gauthier to chair of GOL.
Is there a second?
Ryan, second.
Okay, we are going to vote. Seeing no hands for discussion, we're going to move to a vote. Ana Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
And Counselor Cano Martin.
Aye.
Congratulations, Ana. You are now chair, and I am passing the virtual gavel to you.
Thank you so much. I promise not to bang it too hard on anything. All right, I am now going to open nominations for vice chair of GOL, if there are any nominations. Counselor Ryan.
I would like to nominate Amber Cano Martin.
Counselor Cano Martin, do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, Amber, would you like to say, or George, would you like to speak to your nomination? And then Amber, I'll give you a chance to speak as well after if you'd like.
I guess two thoughts. I had noticed that she had placed GOL as her #1 choice on the preference list. And I think I remember when I became the chair of this committee, it was sometime in the previous century. and I was a complete newbie. So I think it's good to have a fresh perspective and fresh eyes. And so I've been impressed in what I've seen so far on the council and what I've read and heard. Anyway, that was the thinking I brought to it. I was hoping Amber would say yes, but that's her call, and it seems she has.
Thank you. Councillor Canna Martin, anything that you would like to add or say?
Yeah, I would just thanks Councilor Ryan for the nomination. I think this is a really great opportunity for me to learn, sort of what the roles of our council committees are and how they work internally, and sort of hopefully be mentored by Anna. So I really appreciate that opportunity. And yes, I'm very interested in GOL, and I'm sort of a nerd who likes to get into language and policy and rules and know them as well as I possibly can. And I think, I believe this committee will help me to do so. And I will, if you elect me, I will do my very best to perform this role and be a good vice chair.
Thank you. And yeah, this is by far the nerdiest of the council committees, in my opinion, in the best way. Seeing that there are no other nominations, George, would you like to make this as a formal motion?
Yes, I would move to that we nominate and elect Amber Cano Martin as vice chair of GOL.
Second.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the vote. Amber Cano Martin.
Aye.
I almost just called on Athena. Sorry, Athena. Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Councillor Lord.
Aye.
Councillor Ryan.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. It is unanimous. Congratulations, Amber. I'm looking forward to working together. So we are going to move forward on the agenda. I want to thank, I think it was Mandy who put together the agenda, and gratitudes to you for doing that. We're going to start off with general public comment. Public comments on matters within the jurisdiction of GOL are welcome at this time. You're welcome to express your views for up to 3 minutes, and we are not going to engage in dialogue or comment on a matter raised during public comment. We will be focused on our agenda. So we do have one attendee. If you'd like to make public comment, you're welcome to raise your hand. If you do not want to make public comment, you don't have to do anything. That is okay. All right. So moving along, next up on our agenda is our regular meeting schedule, and I can pull it up on the screen because I tried to open everything so I'd be prepared. Okay.
Do you want me to try to do that, Anna?
That's okay. I got it. Thank you.
Good. Thanks.
All right. So we are typically meeting on the 2nd and 4th. Is that right? 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month at 6:30. This should say 6:30. So I'll make that change. Sorry. And then, oh, Athena, I hope it was okay that I just edited this in the online version. Is that okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So much. So take a quick rundown if you haven't had a chance to look at this. And having a conflict doesn't necessarily mean that we will cancel that meeting, but please let me know if you know already that you will have a conflict with a committee of 5. It's relatively easy to lose a quorum. So you can let me know now, or you can email me, either way, but just kind of keep tabs on it. Councillor Ryan?
So March 10th, I'm not sure it will be a conflict. I might be able to come in remotely, but I will not be here on March 10th. So
Okay.
that's a potential conflict for me.
All
I
right.
would say 1 or 2 thoughts about the schedule when we get to that.
Now is an absolutely appropriate time to say
Yeah, I
that.
just want to point out to everybody and to myself that in the summer right now, we're only meeting once in July and once in August. And guess I'm going to turn to you, Anna, and to the other members of the committee who served for the last 2 years. Do you find that usually is the way it works? So you get a little bit of a break in the summer, or is it that's just, I'm just curious why we took those 2 out.
Athena has her hand up, so I'm going to go to her first. Athena, if you're responding to this, if you've got something separate, I'm happy to respond.
Thank you. I did want to speak to I put the schedule together and I wanted to speak to the choices for these dates.
Mhm.
Just exactly as Councilor Ryan pointed out, I only put in one date for July and one in August. That kind of aligns with the council meeting dates. So the July and August meeting dates are before the council's meeting dates in July and August. So if there are any recommendations that GOL needed to make before those meetings in July and August, they could do so. And then the council could act on them. Other committees have chosen to add the meetings back in July and August and then decide later if they want to cancel them. Rather than doing it this way, it's totally up to you if you want to leave one and add as needed or leave the schedule as it is and or add dates and then remove them if you don't need them. And then the other thing is the January 26th date feels late
Yes.
because the first GOL meeting date is so close to the first council meeting date, and when the council reorganizes in the beginning of the year, the president then has to make appointments, and so that was to give the new president time to make appointments to GOL in January before the committee's first meeting. Another council committee has chosen to meet earlier, and if appointments aren't made, then the existing committee members would meet at that first January meeting, which in my opinion is a little confusing, but it's up to the committee if you want to have that first meeting in January earlier or later. Additionally, two other things. That first meeting in January is, of course, close to the holidays. And then in July and August, we have more limited staff time because we try to encourage staff to take time off during the holidays. Now that I'm in the middle of trying to wrap this up, a couple other things are that there will be things coming from other committees and that are time sensitive. And so, particularly for Councilor Keano Martin, there may be instances where we need to schedule additional meetings in order for GOL to complete a review of an item in order to meet a deadline. So, for example, the zoning bylaw changes that make their way through the planning board and CRC, the council has to act on within a certain number of days after CRC closes the public hearing. And so GOL may need to meet more quickly to review those changes to get them back to the council so the council can act in a timely manner. I'm sorry, I had one other thought and it's escaped me. Thank you.
No worries. If it comes back to you, feel free to let us know. George, did you have anything else? Or Councilor Ryan, did you have anything else?
Just responding, I think my initial thought is it's easier to add things than to take them out. So maybe we just leave the summer schedule as it is, and if we need the extra dates, we can put them in. That's just a thought. I don't know what the others think. It does seem a long stretch. Basically, it's almost a month. It's more than a month and a half between the last meeting in 26 and the first meeting in 27. And I hear Athena's points, but it just seems like a really long time. So I don't know if it's worth trying to stick another meeting in there, or we'll just wait and see how things play out near the end of the year. But my initial thought is, why don't we leave this schedule as it is? But I'm curious what people think about that, and also what they think about the long break between December 8 and January 26.
Athena, can I add a question to whatever your other thought is, which is, can you remind us when our last council meeting of 2026 is?
26.
Oh, sorry, I can pull it up too. Don't worry about it. Because my thought, George, is that we often are crunched with the town manager goals in December. And while I know because we're not switching over terms, it's a little bit more flexible, it still would be best practice for us to wrap those up by the end of the year. And so we often have added meetings in December. So it might be prudent to just add one now as well. But Athena, go ahead. I apologize for cutting you off.
No, that's okay. I was going to say to George's point, if you wanted to change the January meeting date, it would be the 12th instead of the 26th.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to do that, and you asked when you asked when the meeting dates were in December?
The
The
last
last
one.
council.
I think I have it on my calendar for some reason.
December 21.
Okay. So I think, yeah, it could be that if we did add one in on the it'd have to be on the 15th. So let's wait. We'll have to wait on that because it's off schedule. So I think I'm comfortable keeping this schedule as, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, but don't let me interrupt you.
I know, I'm
I can
sorry.
always wait.
I
Um,
always think that you're going to tell me how I messed something up, so it's okay. Go ahead.
No, not at all. The other thing that I remembered, the point that I wanted to make is that you have finance committee and bylaw review committee appointments assigned, and so you may have to select additional meeting dates to do interviews depending on
Right.
when applicants are available and so on. So I just wanted to make note of that because I know we're trying to get finance committee members seated, as quickly as possible. You have one
Mhm.
vacancy now and then another one June 30th. And the bylaw review committee, once the charge is finished, I know we'll want to get members appointed as quickly as possible so they can begin their work.
Thank you for that reminder. And so anticipate folks a couple added meetings on the earlier end here, if, as necessary. Is there, Athena, do we have to vote to officially adopt this calendar? I forget every time, or can we just agree that these are the dates?
Typically committees vote, but you can always say if there's no objection, we'll just adopt it as it is and keep it informal.
Is there a motion to accept the Governance, Organization, and Legislation Committee 2026 meeting schedule as written?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, and I'm going to call the vote. Lynn,
Aye.
Councilor Ryan, Councilor Keanu Martin,
Aye.
Councilor Lord.
Aye.
I am imagining cheering happening for you, and I love that. And I am an aye as well, so that is unanimous. Thank you all so much. All right, going back to our agenda, next up is the bylaw review committee charge. So this is the draft charge for the bylaw review committee. As a reminder, this is a process that is to occur in every year ending in 6. So every 10 years, starting in, this is the first one, official one, right? There was a bylaw review committee prior, but this is the first kind of one that's in the regular flow of things. So I am not clear, Athena, on the history of these edits as to whether this is Mandy's suggestion or whether this is something else altogether. Do you have intel on that?
Yeah, there was an initial draft. I think Mandy put the initial draft together, and then there were some changes that were discussed in between when that initial draft was presented to the council and oh no, excuse me. She had put together an initial draft. We discussed it. There are edits based on that discussion, and then this draft with the edits is what was referred to GOL.
Thank you. So we are responsible for dealing with all these edits, but also shifting this as we see fit. And ultimately, I believe that this is a recommendation on a charge, right? We are not to adopt the actual, I'm trying to find, I don't know what the actual motion was, but typically, I guess, Councilor Keanu Martin, this is mostly for your edification. Committees don't, well, always, committees don't approve things carte blanche. Committees make recommendations back to the council. So our job is to look at this charge, and unless Athena tells me I'm wrong, make a recommendation on a final charge back to the council for full discussion. Have folks had a chance to delve into this charge with the edits at all, or do we want to just review it today and come back to it at our next meeting? Lynn?
I'm fine if we can just keep spending a little time on it and get it
Sure.
recommended so that it can come to the council on the 23rd.
Sure. Okay.
I do have a comment
Yep.
for the background. The within 90 days, I'm just reflecting on last time, and some of the recommendations for changes had to be referred to various places for additional feedback and information. And so given that loop, I think the 90 days is really tough. I appreciate wanting to get it done in less than, 2 years. But I would like to suggest that we at least say 180 days.
I'm sorry for interjecting. Lynn, are you referring to the requirement that the council act within 90 days on the recommendations?
Yes.
That's unfortunately that's in the charter and we can't change that in the charge.
All right.
I am gonna put this back on the screen, but I don't want to edit it in the online version, so I'm just downloading it and then I will share my screen again. But Counselor
Okay.
Cannon, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question and then a comment. I guess my question was, when I looked at the track changes version, it looked like almost everything was an edit. So I was just wondering how much had survived from the original. Is it just really that tiny piece on under where it says charge? There's like two bullet points that look like they might have already been there.
So
Uh,
there was this charge, I think maybe this was mentioned at the meeting last night. This charge was based on the bylaw review committee charge that took place in the council's very first term. And so it's not exactly the same. There have been quite a bit of differences, but it would make more sense to compare them side by side. Um, this is very different because it doesn't include counselors and so on. So um, what I'm trying to say is there isn't really an original bylaw review committee except for that original one that took place in the beginning. There hasn't been one that has happened through this charter process before. This is the first time we're doing it through this charter process.
okay. And then in terms of like content, I can hold that if you want. I just that was more of like a
So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to
question.
hear it. And what I'm going to propose is going through it line by line. So if it's general feedback, absolutely give it to us now. Otherwise, if you can hold it until we get to the relevant portion, I think that would be great. Is
I
it
th-
general or is it specific? Oh, sorry.
I think
Um,
because, sorry,
I can wait. I can wait till the sections. That's fine.
Okay. Athena?
Anna, if I may, I think because there's so many track changes and because we're kind of working from the version with the tracks changes is what was referred to the committee. You can probably turn off the track changes so we can look at a cleaner copy.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Thank you. Okay. Do you think I should
Or
just accept them all and
Yeah, I
stop?
think that would.
I think if you accept them all and then track,
Yeah. Because
that'll make it easier.
the changes were what was referred. We weren't referred,
Right,
we discuss all the changes. It's more of this is the version that was referred. Okay.
right, yeah.
So as we go through, I'm gonna go through line by line. Some will be quicker than others. I'm gonna take notes in the side, and then if you have specific edits, I will note those in, and then we'll come back to discuss them. All right. So starting off, name, Bylaw Review Committee, BRC. My only concern here is we're starting to have a lot of committees that have BRC in some iteration. This is an ad hoc town committee. Let me spell that out more. And the reference to the need for this committee is in the charter, section 9.7. Just gonna also appointing authority is the town council. There are 5 voting members, no non-voting members, no liaisons. And the work of this committee is expected to take under a year, is that right? And
There-
so, or a year.
The charter says shall file a report within 1 year recommending any changes.
So
Unless like the charter review committee, an extension is authorized.
thank you. They will have SME status, special municipal employee status, and Athena is, I'm sure, looking forward to being the staff support for this.
I'm really excited, actually.
Honestly,
So,
if you're nerding out as much as you do on this committee, it's fine.
you know, I do. The number of voting members is not set by the charter.
Thank you for clarifying that. So discussion in this piece, this is really a couple other things we're not allowed to change, like this being a year. The references are there. They're kind of just factual. As we're going through, if you feel like 5 is too many or too few or just right, feel free to say that. But right now, are there any proposed changes to this? Lynn?
Yeah, I want to just hold out on the 5. I think it's a great number. I'll be surprised if we get enough applicants.
So you're saying it might have to be fewer than 5?
Yeah, the original committee was 3. But I think it's going to be really based on whether we can get the applicants, frankly.
Counselor Ryan?
Lynn made the point I was going to make. The original committee was 3. And sorry, my video just went off for some reason. Not that you need to see me, but here I am. Yeah, the original committee was 3, and I think Lynn is right. It's going to be a tough road. I wonder why 3. What's the thought behind 5 versus 3?
I think that
Is there any thought? Right.
I mean, I'm happy to take a guess at it. I think 5 is actually a relatively small committee compared to our many other committees.
Yeah,
So
right.
I think that was an effort to, like you said, address some of the concerns that we've had in recruiting applicants in the past. And an odd number allows you to not have split votes. So it's 3, 5, 7, 9. And I think 5 I'm going to imagine felt like it feels to me like a more manageable number considering the issues that we're having recruiting folks to these roles. Lynn?
I think it also protects, having 5 protects against the possibility of a resignation and getting down to the point you only have 2.
Mhm.
So, which I think would be very tough.
And we're more likely to have diversity of thought with 5. Athena?
Yep, just a note, there were a couple of comments that the previous bylaw review committee was 3 members, and that's correct, but there was a subsequent committee that included counselors that was 5 members.
Right.
Subsequent to the bylaw review committee, there was
Right.
another bylaw review committee that
Right.
included 3
Correct.
counselors, Bernie Kubiak and Bob Ritchie.
Right. Okay.
All right. Sorry, go ahead, Athena.
Yeah, I agree with the numbers. More than 5 can be unwieldy, and less than 5 can be really tricky with open meeting law. When you have 3 members, then 2
Right.
can't talk to each other.
Right. Thank you. So let's go to composition and we'll keep discussing the 5. So this is 5 residents, and per the charter, they have to be members of the community who are voters not holding elective office when appointed. This is something I wanted to flag here because it does say voters, which does limit our options. This is a charter provision, unfortunately, but I just wanted to note that as we continue to discuss the charter, that there is Amherst has filed home rules to try to increase our who can vote in our community, and this is an example of where that does impact us. And then this is one that we often put in, although we typically don't put it in this concretely, because it on a 5-person committee, it is impossible to perfectly represent the diversity of the town of Amherst population. So I have questions about this verbiage, and I'm looking for, even if we say seek to, but I think my concern here is that we have an incredibly diverse community, and trying to find 5 people who match feels very checkboxy. Lynn?
I agree. I think something like, to the extent possible, the membership shall reflect, or something like that.
Counselor Canna Martin?
Yeah, my question was also about the diversity, and I was just thinking, it might be useful to specify what we mean, like race, income, gender, age, and with the recognition that we might not get enough applications to fill all those categories. But I think all things being equal, I mean, I think that we should make every attempt to make it a diverse committee.
All right, so let me take a stab at this. To the extent possible.
I just want to note that the membership shall reflect the diversity of the town of Amherst population as language that we've used in other committee charges.
Thank you. I don't like it there either. But thank you.
just a note on consistency, not
I
not a
appreciate it.
Is it?
Yeah. Go ahead, Amber.
I was going to say, is the word diversity defined like in our town, documents, like diversity is understood to mean XYZ? Like, or because if it's not, like, I think we should just say what we mean.
Yeah, my concern there is, where does the list stop?
Yeah.
Because as you know, there are so many aspects of one's identity that make our community diverse. And so I think I absolutely agree that diversity as a kind of a just the word itself can almost be an empty statement when you don't get into the details. And at the same time, if we start listing and we leave something out, it becomes then a problem of omission of a piece of identity. So I'm noodling this a little bit of how to get at what you're saying of like, we're valuing this. And we typically write a lot of this in the selection guidance for committees,
Mhm.
but yeah. Athena?
I think it also creates a question of how diversity is measured when you're evaluating the applications, because the information that we gather in the community activity forms, it doesn't ask in what ways are you diverse, in all the ways are you diverse. And so trying to measure that and then match it up with the ways in which Amherst is diverse in reality. I'm just saying that it's a very fuzzy yardstick, and I think that's probably why we've left it this broad in the past.
That makes sense. Does anyone have other wording suggestions or comfort at this point leaving this with shall reflect the diversity of the town of Amherst population?
I'm sorry. I
Go
meant
ahead.
to just also say one of the other reasons why I think we want to do it this way is I just don't want to be sitting here saying, well, we really just need more candidates now, because I think that the delay that we had to go through to appoint the Charter Review Committee was just unfortunate, but we kept needing more candidates. In this case, will we need 10? Is that the goal?
That's not, there's not a numerical, when we look at candidates and determining a pool sufficient, it's not just about the number of applicants. It's also, we look at community, we look at the CAFs. My brain is leaving me right now. And we say, you know, is there, of the categories that folks choose to fill out, is there a variety of people? Are they from all places around town? You know, like we look at all of the different aspects.
Right.
It's not just numerical. So I don't want to kind of confidently say that that's one or the other. I mean, I think that if we wanted to leave this here, it's okay. I do think that there could be wordsmithing that we do on this to improve it. And it could be something like, to the extent possible, membership on the committee shall reflect the diverse community that Amherst is, or something like that. It makes it a little bit more wishy-washy, but I don't have perfect other wording, so I'm willing to come back to this if people want to keep thinking on it. We can run through this again. Athena?
Yeah, again, just a quick note in the information that's collected in the community activity form, which we call a CAF, is just age, gender, racial or ethnic background, languages spoken, and the address. So that's really the only, hard data that we have, and all of those are, aside from the address and name, are optional. So I just want to caution that we get into perceived diversity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or making assumption about who people are based on things that aren't identified in their community activity forms. So just again, this is a really fuzzy one.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to background. I'm deleting the extra space here. And let's take a second to read it. Section 9.7, and then it just quotes the charter.
Yeah.
So there's not much here that we can
No.
change. It's more of if you have any edits or additional things to add. Okay. Give me a thumbs up when you're done, or just a funny dance. Okay. Purpose: to review the town's general bylaws, and then I just wanted to add and recommend to the town council any changes deemed necessary or desirable. Amber? Sorry, Councilor Kenna Martin?
Yes, so this is kind of similar to my thoughts about the term diversity. Like when it just says any changes necessary or desirable, it just feels like it's really wide open. So do we want to like maybe add some bullets underneath of like what we're looking for, like, to like align with changing state laws, or like removing out of date language, or making them more understandable, or like, because if we just leave it wide open, it just seems really overwhelming. That's all.
I think that, oh, sorry, Athena?
Again, you don't have to call on me first before you talk. Again, that necessary and desirable is straight out of the charter. Um, Changes necessary and desirable are part of that charter definition of the periodic review of bylaws. I would also point out that that under the charge, I think this speaks more to what you're referring to, Counselor Kano Martin, and that this is how necessary and desirable is defined by getting feedback from all of these different people and committees and groups in order to decide what recommendations to make.
I think something that's really important as and we talked about this a lot when we were appointing the Charter Review Committee, is that we're looking for folks who aren't necessarily coming in with all the ways that they want to change the bylaws. We're looking for folks who are going to facilitate the process of reviewing it with our community in a larger way. And so I think, Amber, the purpose statements in these charges tend to be pretty short and broad, and then the charge statements tend to get more specific and into the nitty-gritty. So let's go through the charge, and then if you want to kind of come back to purpose after that, after reading the charge, let's do that if that's okay. Because we absolutely can amend that statement. But all right, so charge, the committee shall. We've got raise public awareness of the bylaw review process through various community outreach efforts. For example, town websites, request community organizations to include information in their newsletters, etc. Develop and deploy a variety of feedback mechanisms, for example, surveys, invitations to testify, public meetings, focus groups, etc., throughout the review process. Analyze feedback from the community prior to preliminary and final reports. Review, propose, and report on process, deliberations, drafts, and recommendations in 2 stages, preliminary and final. And consult with appropriate staff, the Community Safety and Social Justice Committee, other boards, committees, the town attorney, and members of the public. And review the bylaws to determine whether they are serving their intended purposes and make recommendations to the town council on changes. Lynn?
Maybe Athena, you can help understand why we are calling out one committee and not just say, appropriate committees. I could make an equally strong case for the Human Rights Commission, and other subsequent committees.
Sure, Anna, if I may. I'm trying not to interject too much and raise my hand. I actually, that was my recommendation to include the Community Safety and Social Justice Committee because early on, or maybe it was in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, we heard from community groups and particularly the Community Safety and Social Justice Committee, or its predecessor, I think at that point, the Community Safety Working Group, that there was white supremacy and racism baked into Amherst's charter and our laws and policies. And I felt like it would be a good opportunity to address that specifically and ask them for feedback specifically in light of those comments. I think there are other boards and committees that are, I think the Human Rights Committee is maybe also an important one, and you might want to include that, but it felt important to speak to that one specifically because of the comments made and the importance that the council has placed on DEI and social justice and so on.
Thank you. Lynn, any other comments on that?
No, I just don't like signaling out one committee at the exclusion of others.
What we could say is appropriate staff, relevant committees, including but not limited to the Community Safety and Social
Right.
Justice. I'll tentatively type that in. Councilor Ryan, go ahead.
So this doesn't really, kind of back to Councilor Kano Martin's point earlier, it doesn't really give a whole lot of direction or guidance to this body. There's a lot of words here, a lot about outreach and the public and about reports and, 2 levels or 2 versions, etc. But there really isn't anything to give them any sense of, beyond just the notion. It's really the last bullet. Is the bylaw serving its intended purpose? Which would seem to suggest that the main purpose here is to see if we have bylaws that we could eliminate. they're no longer, relevant, or they're no longer doing what they claim they do, and so it might make sense for us to rescind them. I don't know that we can do it tonight. I don't know that we want to do it, but I have to agree that this really doesn't, at least in my reading of it, doesn't really give them much direction or guidance. If I was applying to this committee and I read this, I would be turning to people saying, well, what are you actually asking me to do? Is it, looking for clarity of language? I mean, we've already mentioned the issue of language that might be inappropriate in terms of, issues of race or whatever, gender, whatever. There's that kind of approach, just looking at the language from that perspective. There could be issues of clarity. There certainly could be issues of bylaws that perhaps are no longer needed or could be potentially taken away. So yeah, what do people think? Is this sufficient? And then we're kind of basically saying to them, and you guys figure it out.
I think that we have the option to leave them to figure it out or give them a bit more structure with it. And
Do you think this gives them enough?
no, my own opinion, no.
So,
But we now have the option. Let's add some bullet points in. Counselor Canna
Right.
Martin.
Yeah, so I think one bullet point that I would like to see added, or maybe we add it to the second to last one, is to explicitly say that we want to look at the bylaws with like an equity lens or like a DEI lens. Because I know, so that's something that I had heard that the DEI department was asked to do anyway. So it would be a shame if they did that on their own, divorced from this process and like duplicated work. I mean, I know it says staff on there, but I think maybe if we just add that with like a DEI lens, then, that'll be clear that that's part of this same project and we're not having like a separate evaluation from a separate, department.
Thank you. This is not the perfect, I mean, it feels like a very short sentence to add on the end here, so I'm happy to add a little bit more meat to it of examine bylaws with an equity lens in order to continue Amherst's progress towards an equitable community, but I don't like equity in there twice in terms of wording. So if you've got any thoughts on how to kind of finish this sentence, I'm open to them. Athena?
I really appreciate Councillor Canna Martin's comments because to Lynn's point about not singling out a committee, I think you could remove Community Safety and Social Justice Committee and then speak to that intention in a different bullet as Councillor Canna Martin suggested. So I think if you were going to put that in, then you could take out referring to that specific committee because you can gather that kind of feedback from a variety of sources, not just them.
This isn't it. So Councillor Canna Martin, because this is your first time on GOL. A lot of what we do is wordsmithing in a way, but it's really about figuring out the best verbiage. So GOL, one of the things that I appreciate about GOL is that there's a lot of time in the sandbox, whereas there's less time in other sandboxes and other committees, but we spend a lot of time kind of messily smudging things around to figure out the right way. So I encourage half-baked thoughts in this committee because I find it helps us get to a better ending. So I'm going to throw some stuff out here and then I welcome changes to it, but basically trying to say examine bylaws with an equity lens. And I'm thinking about, considering potential harmful impacts of bylaws or the historically harmed populations.
I can suggest some verbiage. I'd like not write this. Does it have to be right now?
If we want, it doesn't have to be in this exact moment. I do think that I believe that we were going to try to get this back out to the council today, but I'm also cognizant of time, so we may not. But Athena, you can tell me if the expectation is that we're done with this in today.
Absolutely not. You have
Okay.
this meeting and next meeting before the council's next meeting. So if you want to spend some time thinking about this and then intend on making a recommendation at the next GOL meeting, which is this coming week, that might be useful. And I'm also looking at there's some other resources I'm checking at the moment too. But if you want to, sit with these ideas and come back, that's totally fine.
Yeah. And I will put this in the GOL packet as soon as possible so that you can mull it on your own as well. A quick note about the packets on SharePoint, just while we're at it. SharePoint, when you open a document, a Word document up in SharePoint, it opens up a shared version of that Word document. So just to keep us from violating open meeting law by accident, please remember to download each document before you make any edits on your own, so that we're not accidentally sharing our opinion on changes in the live version. As much as I wish we could use something like Google Docs, that would be a violation of open meeting law. So just a note as you go through, we've run into this in the past where folks have kind of put their own comments in the online version. I hope that made sense. Lynn?
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to raise a couple issues. We ran into this with the Charter Review Committee. They didn't have a budget, and yet we asked them to do exactly the same thing here, which was consult with the public, do surveys and stuff like that. So at some point, if we also want to recommend that they have, a $30,000 budget to do their work, then I think we need to do that. That's number one. Another one is that in the previous charge, which was pretty broad, I mean, you could drive a truck through it. They did mention that it would be with consultation with legal counsel. And I think one of the things that was very concerning for me personally, although I think we've been able to rectify it, as we got the recommendations from the Charter Review Committee, was that they had not gone for legal counsel review. We've since gotten it, and it's been an excellent review. So.
The town attorney is in that consult with appropriate staff, boards, committees.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so it is in there, but I absolutely agree on the budget. And I'm realizing we duplicated committees now with that, but we can go back and edit this as fit.
Yeah.
Got to throw a plug in here for a climate lens as well. I think just for the reason why I'm mentioning it is I was pulling up the full list of bylaws, which by the way, this is a hefty document. I'm sure all of us have read it, but it includes things like zero energy town buildings. So I think a climate lens is also important. And I can continue to think about verbiage there, but I'm just going to throw in climate lens. Use one. Are there other elements that can help to focus this charge? Other pieces that we want them to be reviewing this? George, you mentioned one, or Councilor Ryan, you mentioned one earlier of possibly dispensing of bylaws that are no longer necessary. Should we call that out and say, consider if a bylaw is no longer relevant and necessary to the town of Amherst?
Well, that's the part of the problem I'm having with this. I'm imagining, someone reading this and thinking, well, I might be interested in this. And then they look at it and they go, well, what are they actually asking me to do here? And so, for instance, if you're looking at a bylaw and you feel that somehow it's not, quote unquote, serving its intended purpose, unquote, does that mean are they going to propose a new bylaw? Are they going to simply note that it's not achieving its purposes and therefore it should be rescinded? Is their goal to create new bylaws, to recommend that, I would think it's largely to look at the existing document from the perspective of, just the clarity, consistency, agreement with town values, and perhaps looking at some bylaws that perhaps are no longer needed. But maybe I'm missing the boat here. It's also looking at bylaws from the point of view, well, this one that's supposed to encourage the creation of affordable units in town is really not accomplishing its goals. So we recommend that you make this or that change to it. How broad is this remit? Can we give them any guidance in it, or should we just make it very vague and let them figure it out on their own?
I'm jumping ahead a little, but I think this partially gets at what you're saying. The reports reference this a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
A comparison of all recommended changes to the present language in the bylaws and reason for the recommendations. So it's not just keep this bylaw, get rid of this bylaw. It could be proposing specific, it's doing the job of the council for a lot of this, right? This, just to call it what it is. This is what we are always supposed to be doing too. So this is a focused look at it and a concentrated look at it, but this committee can propose recommended changes to my reading is that this committee can propose recommended changes to wording and shift that. So this is an
Mm.
incredibly important committee.
To the substance as well. In other words, they could say instead
Yeah.
of 1 year, it should be 5 years, or instead of 3 units, it should be 14 units. I mean, they could get into that level of detail, um, which is a little concerning because the process that creates some of these bylaws, I assume most of them, involved a fair amount of input, expertise, and thought. And now a group of 5 people coming from a very diverse set of backgrounds, without that sort of time and effort on a particular bylaw, are, at least as I read this, are empowered or encouraged or at least allowed to make very specific changes based on, right? I mean, there are a lot of bylaws here.
So
So I guess I'm just trying to understand the scope. It sounds like they could make very specific changes to a particular bylaw, and they have to provide their reasoning. I agree. And I guess that's just the nature of this beast. That's what they can do.
I think a little bit of this is interpretation of
Yeah.
this specific phrase from the charter. Sorry, my sweater is shedding into my mouth. Recommending any changes to the bylaw which it deems necessary or desirable. I don't know how flexible that verbiage is, but I think in its broadest sense, this could mean any change. But
Hmm.
which I will say I share your concern about an appointed committee of 5 residents proposing massive overhauls, but I will say that any proposed change is coming to the council. And so it's a bit of doing the pre-work for us. Again, we should be out there talking to our residents, pounding the pavement, getting ideas on what bylaws need to shift. This committee is doing a lot of that, would be doing a lot of that work, and that the legwork of kind of seeking that input to make recommendations to the council, who then can choose to act on them. So they cannot change the bylaws. They're recommending them to the council, and they're doing what they're supposed to do is, again, not come in with their personal mission, but they're supposed to do that outreach to see where's the community at on these, and what needs to shift. Athena?
Would you call in Lynn first, please?
Absolutely. Lynn?
As we think about those last bullets that you wrote down there, first of all, thank you for bringing up climate, because now that we've actually have a building that we use the net zero energy bylaw for, I'm hoping that the town will go back and look at the bylaw and see what was reasonable and what wasn't. But are there other things that the council's done in the last 7 years that basically represent our values, our goals, town manager goals? So in other words, can we come up with a broad statement that refers to, the priorities or something? We don't have a stated set of values, priorities, whatever, but we have passed various proclamations, etc., and bylaws that and done other things that really do represent a value statement for the town of Amherst. So I don't know how to. I can't be more articulate about that.
All right. Athena?
Thanks. I think this is an interesting line for this committee to define. In some communities, this review process is merely to clean up grammar and punctuation and numbering throughout the document, make sure things are consistent, really do like a clarity, consistency, and actionability review of the town's bylaws, because, new bylaws are adopted and rescinded and amended all the time. And so just a periodic review going, do these all still dovetail with one another, is what some communities use this process to do. One community whose bylaw review committee charge I reviewed added that the review is to make sure that the bylaws reflect the preferences of the residents. So I think, the bylaws are an incredibly big, the bylaws themselves are like 160 pages.
Yeah.
The charter is a lot smaller than that, and the charter review committee wasn't able, it took them longer than a year to get through their review. So trying to make this task manageable, in my mind, it's like you want to give them what lenses are they looking at the bylaws with? Are you looking to make sure that these are reflective of the town's values, and then you want to define those values? Are you just looking to make sure that the numbering is right, which is in Amherst a job for the town clerk? But to George's question, they could recommend adding, amending, or rescinding bylaws as part of this process.
Thank you.
There's also something that other communities have included in their bylaw review committee charge is to make sure that the bylaws reflect current practices in other cities and towns and work with state laws. So yeah, I'll stop there. I hope that's all.
That was really helpful, and I think we can get out ahead of our skis pretty easily. And so it's really helpful context to know kind of what this means in other communities that do something similar. It doesn't mean it never means we have to GOL, but it is helpful to kind of know. And it gets to some of my concerns because I'm looking at this, and I used to be on the Conservation Commission, and our wetlands protection bylaw is not something that is a light bylaw that your average member of the public is going to be able to weigh in on effectively, right? This is something that our Conservation Commission has been spending a ton of time on. So, I think that it's really worth bearing in mind how we're not, I guess I'll speak for myself. I don't want to necessarily propose that this committee is supposed to be proposing changes to every single bylaw here. And I think that we're setting them up for failure with a year's deadline in that. And I don't think that it's necessarily appropriate. We would need expertise in a lot of these areas. Amber, and I'll stop sharing this, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, just looking at how many bylaws we have, like I think the key thing is really to get people who have expertise in these areas to be able to give feedback to this committee about that, about what things it might make sense to change or need to change. Like more, subject matter experts. But I do think it's important to leave the equity lens in there because I think it's the way it's designed is that, anything can be reviewed with that lens and there's I mean, I don't know what the DEI department is going to use or what tool they're using, but I have a tool as well that we use in the union that you can really just sort of like apply to anything, and it asks some of those questions that you're getting at in the language that you put down about like historically harmed populations and like intent versus impact, and there's a series of components to that. So. I do think that should still stay in there. I don't know that if we can put like a climate lens on like every single bylaw, but there, some of them for sure, like they pertain to that. So
I think, Amber, what you just said is, in my mind, the baseline of a climate lens, though, right? Is like, does this bylaw support our climate goals, or is it neutral, or is it harming them? Like that for me is the baseline question to ask. And many of the bylaws will say it's neutral, it doesn't impact them,
yeah.
and that's fine. But at least the question was asked. And so I think that's where, again, kind of thinking about if we're trying to zoom out a bit, as both you and Athena were talking, I was thinking about this almost as a stop, start, continue review of the bylaws, right? Of like, should this bylaw be here anymore? And we're basing that answer on what is the impact of enforcement of this bylaw on the diverse community that is Amherst? What is the impact on historically harmed populations? What is the impact towards our climate goals? And those answers might be, it is helping, it is hurting, it is a neutral impact. Whether anything is ever neutral is another discussion, but it could be that high level, and it could be a recommendation of the council should review this particular bylaw to consider XYZ versus we think you should change this period here and this whatever there. But then also could include that of like, is your numbering correct? And like Athena said, that is mostly taken care of by the wonderful staff in the town. But we could give a bit more guidance on like, keep it a little bit bigger picture, considering the impact of the bylaw and engage these different groups in determining that impact, maybe. Councillor Ryan?
So perhaps like some of you, I've been scrolling through the bylaws and I'm imagining myself on this committee looking at the zero energy town buildings bylaw or the rental registration bylaw. These go on for many, many pages, have vast number of definitions and specifications. They've been worked on by, for a long time, blah, blah, blah. So I'm asking myself, if I'm a member of this body, what am I supposed to be doing? Now, we're suggesting that you could look at it, is there any problem with the language? Does it, we could use some of our broad values as a lens, and that seems at least guidance and something they could do. But are we also encouraging them to actually go into the definitions and into the fines and into the mechanics of some of these extremely complex bylaws? And then try to figure that. I mean, subject matter expertise, you would have to be, you would have to know just about everything there is to manage what's here. So I'm wondering if the approach should be a rather broad one, and include maybe certain specific values we'd like them to keep in mind as they look at it, but maybe discouraging or making it clear that it's not supposed to be a process of having to figure each one of these out and figuring out, well, how could we do this better? Or does it really accomplish? I mean, we do want them to ask, is it accomplishing the goals that it's set out to do? I think there are perhaps some bylaws in our existing bylaws. There certainly have been some in the past that have been rescinded because they no longer are relevant or no longer seem to do what they should do. And that could be valuable if they go through with that idea. This is something that just should be, it's no longer appropriate, and they give us the reasoning for it. But there are many, many bylaws that are highly complex that we're not asking them to get into the nitty gritty, I don't think. And we probably we'd be a little worried if they did, given that some of these are highly technical. But we still like them to look at it from the point of view of certain basic, broad lenses. So if we could specify the lenses in this document, that might be helpful to them. Is there any other way we could also make it clear that they're not supposed to be going into every single detail, or is that just obvious to everybody but me?
Thank you. I'm going to jot down some thoughts here. I'm going to, Lynn, take your comment, and then I'm going to continue to move us along, just being cognizant of time. And we will come back to this, but Lynn, and then I'll tell you what I think your homework will be. Lynn, go ahead.
This is really expanding on George's point. When we got the last one, there were recommendations that we look at this, or that we, with some group, consult on this. And I think that it's very important, for instance, if they start messing with the conservation bylaw, it seems to me that the conservation committee should be consulted. The question is, at what point? Is it by this committee, or is it once it comes to the council? And this is where the staff to this are critically important.
Yeah, and I guess I know that the Concom has been reviewing the bylaw for the past year, multiple. And I just can't think of how demoralizing it would be to suddenly have to start all over again. With that, and at the same time, maybe there's an interesting perspective to consider. I don't know. I can go back and forth. So here's Athena. Here's what I'm not gonna let Athena interrupt me. Here's what I'm thinking. What I would like people to do. We've got a week. I will put this with our comments in the packet for the next meeting. What I would like you to do is I would like you to do a couple things that Athena referenced, which is to Google it, look at other communities' bylaw review committee charges, just to kind of get an idea, to kind of frame this, give us some context for what other communities have done and how they've utilized this provision in their charter. It seems like this is a pretty common charter provision, and so it should give us an idea. We absolutely do not need to do anything that they have done, but I think it would be helpful to see how other folks have utilized this this tool. I would also like you to think about those lenses and think about answering the question of what would a helpful report back from this committee look like, and what would it include? So if you were to receive a report from a bylaw review committee, what would be in it? And you can get as specific with that as you want. Do not email this to the committee. you can send it to me only if you'd like ahead of time, or bring it with you. But so those are your two tasks in relation to this: external research, and the bylaw review committee hands you a report. It's really helpful because what is in it. Does that make sense? Any questions on your homework before I go to Athena? And pending what Athena says, I might have more assignments. Athena?
Um,
Sorry.
wait, are you saying that I can assign homework too?
You can recommend that I assign it.
I thought this class was pass fail and there was no homework.
Yeah, and if you don't do the homework, you fail. Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Amber, I hope you're finding this amusing.
I'm sorry, Amber. Welcome to the normal chaos that is
I'm
GLL.
just writing down my homework like a good student.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy you're here. Go ahead, Athena.
I think, especially in light of the process the Charter Review Committee just undertook, and that was also the first time the town had gone through that charter review process. In my mind, it's going to be helpful, and so what I'm thinking is that there are going to be some things that will help to set this committee up for success, that are some groundwork tasks and not necessarily tasks that belong in the committee charge. So having an idea of what a work plan might be and having some reports that they can review from other cities and towns so they kind of have an idea of what the expectations are will be helpful for them. But I don't think that defining a work plan for them belongs in their charge. I think that you kind of have to let the committee do its thing at to some extent, and trust that they will. But it will also be helpful for them to begin that outreach to staff and the town attorney early on, so that feedback from boards and committees can be analyzed like a little bit more quickly.
Athena, can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
Would it be out of order to include in the charge review recommended work plan and external resource recommendations or something? Like, not to say you're beholden to it, but to reference that one will be provided and that they should at least look at it to consider utilizing it, and they can use their own if they want, but at least reference to it, so it's not just kind of a like a hidden rule or hidden expectation, not rule, but hidden expectation.
As a committee chair, you could imagine how uncomfortable it would feel to have somebody tell you how to do your job. And so my hope is that working with this committee, it's a collaborative process, and that suggestions about a work plan and how to gather input and the timing for that input would be, taken well. But, I can't tell a committee how to do its work, and I don't think the council ought to tell this committee how to do its work.
I can restate, sorry. I more meant if there are 5 people on this committee who have never created a formal work plan and don't actually know how to go about that, and maybe you as the staff liaison are comfortable facilitating that, and that's great.
Yeah.
So as long as I was thinking more of like kind of putting in a template or something like that, but maybe this is as simple as utilize a work plan and a community engagement plan, basically saying like you got to create something that shows what your plan's going to be, would be more helpful, or is that, do you think, still too directive?
My opinion is that that's too directive, but I
Okay.
would encourage you to think about that as you're developing the interview questions and the selection criteria. Maybe what you're looking at is, we want to find people who are ready to hit the ground running. They have an idea of how to organize this work. They have an idea of what kind of outreach they'd like to conduct. They have an idea of how to put these steps together in a logical way. They're looking at things in they're going to come to this work in a collaborative way and work with staff and so on. So I think some of those things could be worked into your interview questions and selection criteria rather than the committee charge.
Okay. I hear you, and I don't disagree. My only concern with it is, even if people have expertise, they don't always know that they should be applying that expertise in these settings. And so I think we want to just make sure that they're empowered to do that through how this functions. All right, so I'm going to pause us here on this, and you've got your homework. Please let me save this so I don't forget to put it in the packet. GOL edits 2, 3. All right. I will put this in the packet as soon as possible, and again, just download it before you make any changes. I want us to move along in our agenda, if that's all right, to the next item, which is the Town Services and Outreach Committee charge. And I think that I can, oh, I gotta do my downloads again. Hang on. See, I always keep doing this. I think I can give background on this, but I don't know if anyone else feels much more confident in giving the background to this. My understanding is that this was after the creation of the Transportation and Parking Commission, the TSO charge needed to shift a bit, and Andy Steinberg, the former chair of TSO, provided some proposed changes to the charge for GOL to discuss. George, as a former and current member of TSO, do you have any other background on this that you think would be helpful for the committee to discuss as I pull it up? Wait, am I sharing the right thing? Yeah, okay.
So Andy's version was discussed by TSO, and we actually made some modest changes to it. So the version you're seeing is the version that the committee reviewed and then sent to GOL. So this was our committee's best effort. There aren't many major changes here, and I can talk. We can, a little bit about the changes we did make. There weren't many. The underlying idea was that because the TPC, the Transportation and Parking Commission, was finally created by the council, that a good portion of what TSO had done in the past was no longer really relevant to its job. And so while it's still in here, the language is specific to a council referral. I didn't, and the committee agreed that we didn't want to take it out completely because there could be we didn't want to tie the hands of the council. If for some reason there was something involving public ways, including even transportation and parking, that for some reason they wanted to send to TSO, it seemed like we shouldn't forbid that. It's unlikely. Initially thought we'd just take it out completely, but as you can see, that was a modest change under one of the bullet points. And I think the other addition was essentially just the one that was added to all other committee. Well, yes, you can see we did strike under outreach and community relations. We struck one of the bullets, but we did not add anything. And then we did add then the item at the very end, which was added to all committee charges, namely recommendations to the town council on measures may include consultation with the town attorney. So that was added. And already I think had been done by the time we got to this. We struck the item under outreach, advise and make recommendations to the town council regarding town council participation in community events. The committee felt simply that we just don't do that, and we couldn't see any future in which we would be doing it. And so we felt it should be stricken. And then up above, there was the one change where instead of taking out completely references to transportation and parking, we left it, but specified by referred by the town council.
So thank you, George. Thank you, Councilor Ryan. This first change brings this in alignment with the creation of the Transportation and Parking Commission. So this one I don't see as controversial. This is really just saying we are retaining the right to engage on these matters, and because they would first be referred to us. Comments on or questions on the second piece? George, your explanation made sense. It's really,
we just don't do it. We don't do it, and we couldn't see a world in which we would be doing it.
If there are no further questions, do I have a motion to recommend to the town council, right? This is still, yeah. Motion to recommend to the town council the revised TSO committee charge.
I so move.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I gotta write this down so I don't get in trouble. Sorry, one second. I'm really bad at reports. And next meeting, I will talk to the committee to see if anyone else would be interested in helping me with the reports because it is an area of challenge for me. All right. So, George, you moved
That
and
we,
Lynn seconded.
right. Who seconded it? I didn't hear.
Lynn.
I second.
Lynn, okay,
All right.
so
Okay.
I moved, Lynn seconded, thank you.
Thank you. Calling the vote. Counselor Kendall Martin.
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer.
Aye.
Counselor Lord.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. So that is unanimous. I will send this to Athena and Mandy. Thank you all very much. Look at that. First recommendation back to the council. Out we go. Nice job. We're cruising after a slight slow. All right. So recommendations for council liaisons. Hang on. I got it. I want to talk a little bit about how I've handled this in the past. And then we're going to discuss the memo from Mandy. So let me pull up the memo from Mandy just in case that you didn't have a chance to read it. Okay. So here's what Mandy sent. Okay. So
Anna, may I ask, I'm sorry,
yes,
this was in SharePoint, or was it in the packet for tonight's meeting? I don't know where this came from.
this was in SharePoint for tonight's meeting.
SharePoint, okay.
It's
So,
on the web too.
yeah, okay, all right.
But it's pretty short, so let's just walk through it. She included all the notes, but we'll start really the piece that's critical for us or most important for us is this top part. The requests from committees and boards that would like a council liaison include Commission for Persons with Disabilities, Human Rights Commission, Council on Aging, CSSJC, ECAC, and Amherst Public Shade Tree Committee. Design Review Board was undecided. 3 committees specifically said they do not have need for a council liaison. There are some counselors that have been interested in serving. And then she included the notes. So I want to show in the past, GOL, I don't know if it was a me thing or a GOL thing, but we handled a bit more of the process. So I'm fine to let Mandy rock it. But this is in the past what has happened. So we had all our committees here, and then I noted whether they were what their status was, and then we tracked the interest. Mandy's made our job a lot easier. I think right now our main job is to say whether we agree with Mandy's list first off, and then whether there are additional committees that we would like to recommend receive a liaison that did not specifically ask for one. I want to start with Councilor Kendall Martin. I am really not trying to continue to single you out, but you're just the new person, so I apologize. I want to just start, and there may be questions from returning counselors as well, with the opportunity for any questions about the liaison process. Any questions about how it works or things like that?
Yes. So I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
I couldn't find the Mandy Joe memo on board docs. Maybe I'm missing it somehow.
I think it was added pretty recently to the meeting, but it is there now. And
Okay.
what I will, yeah, so I can pull it back up again though. Hang on one second. Just so it's on your screen.
Okay. I see it now. I got it. Okay. I just have to
awesome.
refresh.
No.
Okay. So just to see if I understand this correctly. So these are the committees and boards that would like a liaison. And then, so do we, as GOL now, we're recommending potential liaisons to these committees?
No, so the process is a little confusing and is a possible rule change, which I'm going to talk about in a second. GOL's role is to recommend ultimately to the council which committees we would like to see have a liaison. it does not guarantee them a liaison, nor does it, yeah, I guess it does not guarantee them a liaison. And committees that did not request one could still have one. So basically, we recommend a list of committees. It could include the ones Mandy sent and any others that we see fit to receive a liaison. Mandy will conduct, it seems like Mandy is planning to conduct the matching process for folks in terms of expressing interest. And then the council votes those liaisons. A counselor can express interest in a committee that was not recommended by GOL. GOL's is just a recommendation. It's not a mandate. Does that clarify?
Yeah, thank you.
In the past, I pulled up an old memo. In the past, we reminded counselors of the role of a liaison because I find that has been really helpful. I think that the word liaison means something that is often different than how we utilize liaisons. So just as a reminder, as we're looking at this list, I'm going to read from the rules real quick. The council may designate counselors as non-voting liaisons to multi-member bodies, school committee, and library trustees. The function of a liaison is to serve as a link between the council and the multi-member body to which they are assigned. They are there to observe, share information, answer questions to the degree that they can, and make sure that the council is kept apprised of the work of the body to which they are a liaison. They are not there to advocate or promote a particular policy or course of action. Liaisons are not voting members of the body. Liaisons shall identify themselves as such prior to the first instance of speaking at each meeting, and may only ask questions and make comments during discussion when recognized by the chair. Liaisons shall not comment during public comment. This is a big one. That is often forgotten. Liaisons shall not express personal opinions when recognized by the chair to speak. Liaisons shall not commit the council to a course of action and are not to speak on behalf of the council. Liaisons sit where the public is seated. So in Zoom, that means you're in the audience. You're not in the webinar room. Liaisons receive meeting postings, agendas, reports, and minutes from the body. They are not required to attend all meetings of the body, but should be familiar with the materials provided and maintain contact with the chair. Liaisons shall report any of the body's pending policy or budget recommendations to the council in a timely manner. And not all town multi-member bodies will have liaisons. We review this list annually. GOL reviews the list of liaisons annually and get to determine our preferences annually. So it's an interesting role, and I think that it is often a confusing one in terms of what you're there to do and how you can engage, but it is spelled out in the rules. It's just not kind of the first thought people often have when they think about the word liaison. So let's start with Mandy's list. Informally, this is not taking a vote on this. Are there any committees that requested, I'm going to pull it up again, that requested a liaison that, is this the right one? Hang on, I lost it. Doop, doop. All right, 123, sorry. Are there any committees that requested a liaison that GOL does not want to recommend? Let's start with that. So these are the ones who requested. Doop. Right here. Any that folks would like to say, no, we're not recommending. I think personally, I'm not against it. I am curious how a liaison would best support the Public Shade Tree Committee. I think that that's the one that I'm, again, not in opposition to, but I'm curious about how they would be helpful to them. I'm not necessarily seeking an answer unless you've got one for me, Councilor Ryan. It's more rhetorical.
Has there been one in the past?
No.
No.
Okay, so this is a new request.
Oh, they've requested one in the past.
Okay, but we've not granted them one. I think the other thing that, and I say this for everyone.
Wait, sorry. I want to clarify.
Yeah.
They've requested and been recommended for a liaison in the past. No counselor has served as a liaison.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's the other factor that I'm not sure we can consider or should consider, but I certainly consider when I'm looking at this. When you think of the demands on our time and energies, I was the liaison for the Affordable Housing Trust for this past year. and I note that they're not on the list this time. We'll get to that in a moment. But I was a terrible liaison. And so that's on me. But I do think we also have to keep in mind the uh, counselors obviously make up their own minds what they want to do and what they don't want to do. But it's given the demands on our time, fewer definitely is probably the best way to go. And since there has been no interest expressed in the past, and there's nothing that prevents a counselor from sitting in on or just, not being even involved in some way. But so I would suggest that probably we would take out the Public Shade Tree Committee, Climate Action, CSSJC, Council on Aging, Human Rights Commission. We have traditionally had someone on the commission for persons with disabilities. That counselor has stepped down, but it might be worth keeping it to see if someone wants to take it up. But I would agree with Anna that perhaps we would just not. We don't want to be rude, but we might not pass on the Public Shade Tree Committee for exactly the reason that she gave and that I've added to.
Thank you. I don't mind recommending it. I think one of the things that I wanted to look up was in my memo, I included whether or not this body had a liaison in 2025, which I think can be helpful. I don't know that I don't think that it's helpful for GOL to necessarily remove, because I think that because counselors are not required to serve as a liaison, we see people protecting their time a bit more when it comes to liaison appointments. Not every counselor serves as a liaison, and often there are committees that do not seek them. I do think it's interesting that last year there were 15 committees that sought a liaison, and this year there are only 6. Again, it's just something that I find interesting. I think, George, while I have questions about this, it's more of a question from our end as we think about the rules for liaison and we think about when we outreach to these committees, what are we asking? I think maybe it's more of a curiosity of what is the need of a committee for a liaison, and that's more of a question of the rules of procedure than the recommendations here. I'm comfortable recommending all 6. I think the question mark is the design review board. They were undecided. Does GOL want to add design review board to the list of recommended committees? Amber?
What is the design review board?
So I'm not going to do a good job in a sentence of describing it, but the design review board is essentially the body they're very similar to the planning board in a lot of ways, but they look at the physical design of proposed buildings. They fall, their work falls under the purview of our zoning bylaws. So the charge reads to preserve and enhance the town's cultural, economic, and historical resources by providing for detailed review of all changes in land use, the appearance of structures, and the appearance of sites which may affect these resources. So they make recommendations to applicants, developers, and for example, a store owner wants to change the sign that's right downtown. They have to go through the design review board to make sure that the new sign they want to put up is in keeping. In keeping might not be the right word, but yeah.
Great.
It was a very poor explanation, but hopefully got the idea.
Actually, that's not a bad. You've actually nailed it. That is what it does. I have the same page in front of me. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's only taken me 4 years on the council to figure it out. So
there's a lot that we're still learning. But I would suggest that, again, if I may, that since they don't really know if they want one, we should not add it to the list.
Okay.
And yeah.
George, were you proposing, and we can take it to a vote?
No, you convinced me. I mean,
Yeah.
in the end, the councilors will make up their mind. If there's somebody that really wants to be on the Public Shade Tree Committee on the council, and they have expressed an interest for having a liaison, who are we to say no?
Sure. So I am going to entertain a motion to recommend the following 6 committees for liaisons in 2026. This is a motion. The commission
Second.
I haven't made it yet.
And I have a question before you make it.
Go ahead,
So
George.
I guess it's a point of order, if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And maybe that you've already settled this, I missed it, but I thought we were going to also talk about, or at least entertain, adding any other committees. And
Oh
that's
my God, I'm so sorry. You are
okay,
absolutely
good.
correct.
Yeah, I
Correct.
thought we
Sorry.
wanted to, and I have right. So we should do that first, and then
You,
we should have a motion.
you are
Thank you.
completely correct. Okay. Are there additional committees that folks would like to add to this list? Counselor Karen Martin.
Yes, I recommend Concom, affordable housing, and Black reparations, if that's possible. It might be too soon.
Affordable housing. The Affordable Housing Trust.
Is that
Yeah.
what it's called?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is the Affordable Housing Trust. There's
Yeah,
the one.
Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah.
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 I was the delinquent liaison on that.
Oh my God. I was on Conservation Commission for so long, and the word commission is that's a tough one. Conservation Commission, Affordable Housing Trust, and then you said Black reparations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. 1 second. I'm going to pull up a draft memo. Counselor Cannon Martin, did you have something else to add?
No, I just was hoping to add those three.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just typing them and trying to make sure I spell commission correctly before I share my screen.
Sorry, did my hand go up again? I didn't mean to do that.
No, I think it was a linger. You're good. Counselor Ryan?
A question, not necessarily that I want or don't want it, but we never had planning board. Is that right?
There has been a liaison to the planning board in the past. However, counselors who served in that role in the past felt limited by the liaisons. The rule that liaisons are not allowed to speak during public comment.
Okay. All right.
So that's a tough one. Can someone just, oh, never mind, I found the word commission. I figured it out in my brain. All right. So I'm going to share just a draft memo here. Sorry, something loud is happening outside. I'm still in my office because I needed to focus, and it's downtown and there are things happening outside. Okay. So who did not specifically request a liaison, but who GOL is recommending receive one, or recommending, yeah. Oops. Counselor Ryan, your hand is up. Is that an old hand or a new hand?
So do people want to add planning board or not?
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Any
it's
other
a
thoughts?
question. I'm thinking myself, maybe, yeah. Let's put planning board down. Okay.
Athena.
Just a note about the planning board,
Yes.
we usually have a lot of interaction between planning board and CRC because they have zoning bylaw changes come to the council and then go to CRC and the planning board. New zoning proposals are often reviewed by the planning board before they come to the council and then back to CRC and planning board for hearings and so on. So not to discourage the committee from making that recommendation, but I just wanted to point out that there's already a lot of collaboration between the CRC and the planning board, and the staff of all those committees work really closely together.
Thank you. I am trying to remember which of these had liaisons in 2025, and I'm going to look to my returners for help, and I can look this up as well, but I know that Counselor DeAngelis served the Commission for Persons with Disabilities. I thought we had one on HRC. Does anyone recall?
Yes, I was HRC.
That was Lynn. Great. Council on
Jennifer was council on aging.
Hala was CSFJC. Counselor Ette was ECAC for a minute, I think. And then, yeah, okay. You were the trust, right?
That was the trust, yes.
And then I'm going to note new committee. Are All right, is this correct? Did we have a liaison to Conservation Commission or no? I can't remember if Jennifer did served in
I
that.
don't think so.
All right. Any other comments before I try my motion again? Okay. I move that GOL recommend to the council the following committees for a liaison in 2026. Commission for Persons with Disabilities, Human Rights Commission, Council on Aging, Community Safety and Social Justice Committee, Energy and Climate Action Committee, Amherst Public Shade Tree Committee, Conservation Commission, Affordable Housing Trust, Black Reparations Committee, and Planning Board. Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. I'm going to call the vote. Councilor Cannon Martin,
Aye.
Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer,
Aye.
Councilor Lord. Councilor Lord, are you with us?
Aye.
Awesome, thank you. And I am an aye as well. Just writing down my firsts and seconds. Okay. Thank you so much. I will send this to Mandy to continue on in that process. Cranking along, doing great, everybody. Carryover items. I'm going to pull up our carryover memo and just touch on what's coming up in our world. This is the best carryover memo you will see because it was written by last year's chair who put too much time into making it all look nice. All
It
right.
was a good memo.
Thank you very much. I'm going to give full credit to Pat DeAngelis because I just looked at hers because I thought hers was really good. All right, so let's talk through this. First off, if you've not read the memo and refamiliarized yourself with the charge of GOL, please do that. It is very helpful. Additionally, I'm going to give flowers to George Ryan for when he was chair. George did a lot of work outlining a lot of the processes that GOL can undertake, and both he and Councillor Haneke did a good job outlining some of the just commonly used terms. You know, kind of what's the difference between a resolution and a proclamation, that kind of thing. Those are all in the SharePoint file, just as reference documents for committee members to review as you see fit. But a couple things that are central to the work of GOL in terms of what we know is on our plate. Other things will come up that relate to other pieces of our charge, but recommendations to the town council regarding town council standing committees. We just are talking about bylaw review today, but as mentioned before, we've got finance committee, one open seat now, and we do have applicants for that. The last GOL iteration did deem that pool sufficient and get everything set up for this GOL to start on interviews. They voted the interview questions and selection guidance. If we would like to revisit that, we can. But what I would urge committee members to do is to review that, and I'm happy to send it out. And tell me if you would like it added to an agenda because you have specific changes to it. I will say because finance committee appointments are done regularly, the selection guidance and interview questions have been tweaked slightly and refined, but have stayed pretty consistent over the years. They've been honed pretty well. We talked about non-voting council liaisons, finance committee, etc. I'm confused by that. Okay. And then the other piece, often what GOL will do is reviews for clarity, consistency, and actionability. So again, one of those handy things that George created years ago in SharePoint defines those terms. So please take a look at those. Here are the things that are on our docket already, and we've already gotten more, but here are the things that are on our docket. So we have the Resident Oversight Board charge and process. This is a bit of a confusing referral, and so I want to just talk through it briefly. The proposed Resident Oversight Board charge and bylaw were referred to GOL, and we are supposed to make a report and recommendation to the town council by April 1st. However, what was referred to us were a couple different options for that charge. So we are not coming in with a charge edited like we are in the last one, kind of looking at what is the route forward that we want to take. So this one will be more of an intensive process by this group and more intensive work by this group. And and the reason for that is that the stakeholder group that was convened by, or that was convened, I don't know if that's the right word, by the town manager, basically couldn't come to a consensus on which model would be most appropriate for the resident oversight board. And so sent us both of them to discuss, and we are to recommend to the council, not necessarily one or the other, but what is our recommendation. So it can be one or the other. We could come to a different conclusion. Does that make sense? I think I kind of jumbled my way through that. Okay, great.
That's
Believe that this was removed, question mark, at the council. The legislative process guide, is my brain serving?
it was
as-
removed.
Thank you. Ignore that one.
Mhm.
The Human Rights Commission bylaw. This was a proposed bylaw that the Human Rights Commission has been working on for quite some time, and it would replace the current HRC bylaw. The one note here is that we would likely need to, well, we will need to make sure that we consult with the town attorney on both of the on both of these, just to be clear, on the resident oversight board and HRC. And the bylaw and the memo are linked there for you to consider. So we'll be discussing that. And these are both, if I'm not mistaken, these are both substantive reviews. The first one certainly is. This one is as well. So we're not just looking at clarity, consistency, and actionability. And I want to just talk for 30 seconds about the difference between a substantive review and a clarity, consistency, and actionability review, because this is something Councilor Ryan and I talked briefly at Monday's meeting that I'm going to try to be a stickler about as chair this year. When we review things like proclamations and resolutions, we are reviewing them, unless directed otherwise, for clarity, consistency, and actionability. That means, are they understandable? Do they look like the other resolutions and proclamations that we've passed in terms of the style and the formatting? And are they actionable? Meaning, we want to make sure that they do not conflict with any of our current bylaws or state or federal law. And are they actionable in the sense of, we have the authority to make this, to put this out there. Remember that proclamations and resolutions are non-binding documents. They are not bylaws. And so as we go through it, those are the things we're looking for. What I will not allow us to get into discussion on is the merit of inclusion of pieces of different resolutions, proclamations, etc., if they're referred to us for clarity, consistency, and actionability. It can be really challenging to stay away from that piece when you're looking at a proclamation you strongly agree with or you disagree with. But I wanted to make sure that the committee is clear on the differences there. Tangent aside, next up I talked about the Finance Committee appointments already. Please review these. This is a really helpful, especially the policy on making recommendations is a really helpful document to familiarize yourself with that process. Things that are going to come to us soon, but are pending work in other committees. Proposed amendments to General Bylaw 3.3, refuse collection and recyclable materials. You'll often hear this referred to as the waste hauler bylaw. This is still with TSO. When they are done, it will come to us for clarity, consistency, and actionability. And then similarly, the street lighting policy has been referred to TSO, Finance, and GOL. Because our review is for clarity, consistency, and actionability, we wait until those other committees have done their substantive review, so that we're looking at a final measure. All right. And we already have done the last item in our carryover memo. Councilor Ryan.
Just to comment briefly on the two TS items you just mentioned that TSO is and was involved with. Those are, I think, many months away.
Yeah.
So just people shouldn't think that next month or 2 months from now, suddenly they're going to have this dropped on their laps. The waste hauler will not get the consultant's report to the town manager until April. So at the very earliest, it would be May and June. And streetlights is also in the town manager's court at the moment. They will come eventually, I assume, but not soon.
Thank you. There are a couple other things that I think are sort of waiting in the wings, right? We heard at the Massachusetts Municipal Association about some necessary changes in terms of permitting for solar and battery storage. And so we know that any proposed, if you hear about a bylaw that's coming up, it will come to us for at least a clarity, consistency, and actionability review. So know that those will go alongside. Any questions about the carryover memo or that ties into our upcoming agenda items as well? Some upcoming much further along in the future. Yes, Lynn.
This is really for Amber more than anybody. One of the reasons why we made the additional changes to each of the other committee charges is committees would do things, but they wouldn't do the legal review. It would come to us, yet we hadn't been part of the substantive discussion. And so we had to send it off for legal review. And when it came back, it would be not just clarity, consistency, and actionability, but it would also be issues that frankly wasn't part of our committee's charge. And we didn't have the expertise or the experience of discussing it before. So we kept bouncing things back and forth between us and committees. And so finally we just said, have your legal review before it comes to us. That's why we did all that. So, and that was last term, and I think it was one of our best decisions.
Hopefully it makes life a little easier. All right. So the other thing that's not on the carryover memo that I just want to mention is that in GOL's charge, GOL is responsible for doing a full review of the rules of procedure every year. And how we have handled this in the past, because there are so many other demands on GOL's time, is that any member of GOL, any member of the council is welcome to at any point propose changes to the rules of procedure. Instead of having this committee go through line by line those rules, we instead solicit that feedback. And so I would encourage committee members to review the rules of procedure and track changes. Anything that you want to see change, that you want GOL to discuss as a change, bring to GOL. So please know that that door is absolutely open, but I watched prior GOL committees spend many, many meetings going through a document and largely approving a significant amount of it after spending that time. And given the amount that we have on the docket, I would rather have folks read it on their own time and come back with proposals for changes that they see fit for the committee to discuss. Any questions on that? Athena?
Please call on Councilor Kano Martin first.
Councilor Kano Martin?
Yeah, so just in reviewing the carryover memo, the one question I had was about the Human Rights Commission bylaw. So my understanding was that there was an attorney, well actually, yeah, like I don't know if it's in the memo itself, but the attorney already worked on it and looked at it and was consulted in it back in 2023. So I'm just wondering why we're doing another review with the attorney.
Yeah, I think let me revisit because it's been a hot minute since I looked at Paul's memo. It could be if we make changes to it. Does anyone have a cleaner answer while I look this up? Athena, your hand's up maybe for something else still, but if you've got a thought, I welcome it.
Something else.
All right. Oh, I think that what it is, Amber, is that what he writes in his memo is that the town attorney offered suggested language on a draft of this. And some of the town attorney's suggestions were incorporated, others were not, and then the draft continued to be worked on. So the town attorney has not necessarily reviewed the final product that has come out of the HRC of the bylaw. That's my reading of this. I think that it's also important for this committee to know, in terms of an actionability standpoint, if there are pieces that the town attorney recommended that the draft bylaw did not incorporate. It's important for this committee to be aware of those in case it is opening up a potential issue for the town for legal reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I guess it makes sense. It seems really duplicative, but yeah, and I just see how much we have to do, and I was like, the consistency, clarity, accuracy, like that all sounds good, but I was just like,
for what it's worth, what an attorney review looks like for us is getting a marked up version with comments that we get to discuss. So while it does add time, absolutely, it is typically sparks good conversation and has often led to stronger bylaws. So we are not under, and try to make sure I phrase this right, we're not necessarily under an obligation to take attorney recommendations either. And it is very important that we discuss them because of the implications of choosing not to take them. And we may choose to accept those implications and we may not. Athena?
Just a couple notes for your upcoming agenda items.
I haven't started my spreadsheet yet, so I may need you to email these to me, but yep.
Okay, just we'll touch base in between now and our next meeting, which is going to be this coming Tuesday, a week from today. President Haneke sent a rule change, a recommended rule or a proposed rule change. The council will also, and this is definitely not going to happen before the next committee meeting, but the council is having its work session on the charter changes. Some of those changes might end up being changes to the council's rules. Some of the changes might come to the committee for review that will eventually be a special legislation or a townwide vote. So just to, keep some mental space in there for those things. And then also it would be really helpful if the committee were sort of preparing to hit the ground running with interviews. So I'd like to get in touch with you, Anna, and Councilor Cannon-Martin to make sure we're ready to post the vacancies for the Finance Committee and Bylaw Review committees so that we can begin collecting community activity forms and the committee can get ready to roll on those interviews and recommendations.
So should we plan at our next meeting to approve the postings? For
Every time we go through this process, I have to look at the process for council recommending council committee members. I think that's the first one. I think that's the first step. But I yeah, whatever the first step is, we should get ready to do that at the next meeting.
For FinCom though, FinCom had been posted already.
Yes.
It has been, but there's the whole provision about how long ago the application was put in and if it was, there's.
All right, I will review it and connect with you on what can be done. I think this leads me to my ever burning desire to propose a change to the multi-member body policy to stop folks from having to resubmit the same CAF they submitted a month earlier because they missed the deadline. But
yeah.
So I think that's my concern, is that we would lose people in that process. But I'll review it too, and you and I can connect to figure out what makes sense to put on the next agenda.
Yeah, whether it's the meeting or the CAF notice, or I think we need to the committee needs to approve something to put on the bulletin board, and whatever the next step is, it would be great to have that lined up for the committee to approve.
For FinCom specifically, though, the last GOL went through the process of, we had already done that because we had gotten to the stage of we approved the interview questions and the selection guidance already.
I think we need to repost it because those postings always need an expiration date. The one on the bulletin board.
So I think what's throwing me, and I can try to wrestle with this, is that we had already done it. Like we'd already gone through that process, and we'd already deemed the pool sufficient. We'd already voted the selection guidance. We'd already voted the interview questions.
It would be great if you and Councilor Cannon-Martin and I could have a conversation when my brain is functioning a little bit better.
Okay, that sounds good.
Before Tuesday.
Yeah.
In the next day or so.
I was going to say before like Friday.
Yeah.
The challenge with Tuesday meetings, everybody, is that the posting date is Fridays, I think. And there are a lot of Monday holidays, which makes the posting date Thursdays. So that was the bane of my existence last year, and I'm hoping to be a little bit better at it this year.
And that's the case this coming week. So.
Oh, what? Okay. Lynn.
Or next. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're ready for things.
There. Lynn?
I just want to speak to the Finance Committee. I think we're actually ready to do interviews. We did a lot of posting, but the one thing we do need to find out, and that is of the what is the terms on the two additional people on the two people who are presently on, and when do those terms expire? Because some of them, we may be looking for one or we may be looking for two. That's all. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. All right, everybody. It is 8:26. And while I would love to stay here chatting forever, I would like to let everybody get back to their evenings. Really briefly, minutes. We do not currently have minutes to approve. However, in the past and other committees do a process where they assign one person to review minutes and approve them on behalf of the committee. So I would, because we don't have any minutes to approve right now, this is less pressing. However, I'd like folks to consider whether that is an act of service that they might be able to perform for this committee. As I mentioned before, the other active service that I will be seeking help with is writing our committee reports. This means tracking the votes and discussion and taking notes on it that can be then submitted to the council. So please consider one of those two items as a possible added active service for GOL. And let me know by the next meeting if that's something you'd be interested in. When in the meantime, if we don't have someone deputized to approve minutes, the minutes will come to the committee in our packet and we will vote them. There are no items, excuse me, not anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. And so with that, I am happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Ryan.
Thank you. I gotta write it down because I gotta try to do a report. All right. Calling the vote. Counselor Lord. Counselor Lord, I did not catch that. I'm so sorry. Could you
Oh,
say
that's
again?
okay. Aye.
Thank you very much. Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer,
Aye.
Counselor Kendall Martin,
Aye.
and I am an aye. We are adjourned at 8:28 p.m. Thank you all so much. I'm looking forward to working with you this coming year. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.